Alrighty. Alrighty. It looks like we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WPAMA. My name is Allie Nimmons. I will be your host for today. If you are new to our series, in case you don't know, every week we round up your questions on a very specific topic, and then we sit down with a really cool person in order to answer them live here on the channel. So if you're just tuning in and you do have questions about this topic that you haven't sent to us previously, please leave them in the chat. And if we have time, we'll definitely get to those questions. This episode will be available to watch here on YouTube indefinitely, and we're going to be adding captions to the video within the next 1 to 2 days in case you need those or want those. So this week, answering questions about customer success and churn is another WP Boss teammate, Dean Burton. Hi, Dean.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So awesome to have you here. Before we dive into the questions, just tell us a little bit about about who you are and what you do and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, cool. I'm Dean. I am the head of client success at WPAMA. What that means is that I kind of oversee churn in the company. I oversee the success of our clients. Doesn't just fall on my shoulders, but we have Susan on the client success team who's just joined us, and Louise as well. We make sure our partners and clients are successful on our care plans. We just have fun doing it.
Very cool. Well, I'm really happy to have you here. I think this is a topic of conversation a lot of people are really interested in. We have a lot of people watching who are freelancers or run businesses or run agencies, and I feel like keeping customers happy and keeping them from leaving is always something that's kind of top of mind. And you're super good about that. I can attest. We have about 4 questions here that we'll go through. And if you're watching, please leave those questions in the chat and we'll get to them after these 4. So the first question that I have a large amount of subscriptions churning because of failed payments. What can I do about that?
Yes, good question. Failed payments is actually, it's one of those areas that I feel like, so I speak to a lot of agencies because obviously we have the white label program. And through speaking to our agency partners, failed payments is actually an area that a lot of people tend to miss. And when I say miss, that's just in terms of like the operations side of failed payments and how it's managed and like the automation of all of this, this sort of area of the business. Failed payments will happen because like customers' cards will expire. We're all human. We might lose a card or it's stolen and all of those sorts of reasons. And so their subscriptions will stop. You can't take the payment. And so if you're finding that you're losing a lot of these customers, it means that you have to probably go back through your processes and have a look at basically how you're handling that. And you can come at that with different angles. Depending on how many subscriptions you're managing. If you're a freelancer or you're a consultant, you're managing your agency with, you're the only person that's managing everything, marketing, sales, customer success, which many people are. You want to automate as much as possible. It's one of the tools that's really going to help you kind of be alerted to these failed payments and then subsequently follow up. Even the follow-ups can be automated to a certain extent. Through email automation and then also a mixture of manual. There's a great system called Baremetrics. This is a really common one. We used to use that here at WPFs. And that basically, actually, we're still using that for our failed payments. So I can say it's a great system. It's one that you can basically just use to automate this sort of thing. So if somebody fails, if a payment fails, it will alert you and you can follow that sort of journey. It will show you whether the customer has kind of clicked an email follow-up link. It will show you if they've opened it and read the email and if they've taken any action. Maybe they need to update their cards. So the first step I would say is basically just make sure that you have a process, even if it's manual at this point. Really just make sure you have a process to kind of follow up there. And a lot of these cases, you're going to be able to win these customers back. You'll find that a large percentage are just accidental and people do still want to be on your service, like their car's just expired and you just maybe don't have a system in place to be able to catch that yet. Really common when you're just starting out as well. It's just another one of those things that you need to kind of look at and try and automate. But yeah, I definitely recommend automation just because it's going to save you a ton of time. Even if you're in a company and you're kind of heading up the customer success side, it's going to be something that you want to have a look at to automate to save your team a lot of time. You don't really want to be manually emailing hundreds or thousands of clients just because their card is kind of expired. But yeah, we do actually use automation and manual work on our side for failed payments. We're a small client success team at WPAMA, and we are managing a lot of clients. And so a mixture of automation works really well with manual sort of work. When I say manual, it's really just if somebody hasn't actioned an automated email after maybe the third or fourth time, then we can reach out with a very, very customized and personal email and kind of just find out, did you mean to pass this by, or, are you happy to give us a bit more feedback? And then you're kind of heading into exit survey kind of strategies there and figuring out why they left. But automation would be my answer.
That was going to be my kind of follow-up question is, like you said, a large percentage of people, it is sort of like an accident or an oversight. How do you, I guess it's very case by case, but how do you handle those people who are just like, oh yeah, like I don't need that. I don't use that. Like, I'll just get rid of it. Yeah. Like, I feel like there's an opportunity there to kind of prove that they maybe do need what you're providing, and maybe you haven't been providing the value, or they aren't aware of the value. Like, how do you kind of approach that to rectify that mindset and that they do need you?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And sometimes, again, an overlooked sort of area of the business is how are you providing value and how are you showing that value to the client? It's just another area of churn to look at. Yeah, and I guess the answer depends on what type of business you're running and what product you're selling, really. For us, obviously, we're running care plan subscription services, and we're managing and maintaining websites. A lot of that happens kind of in the background for a client. The piece of value that they tend to really see and hold on to is the support and edits, which is all handled by email. And so if they're really kind of sending in support tickets to us and the engineers are getting work done for them, that's work that, the client has actively requested. And so they can see that value really, really quickly. When we kind of see clients slow down on those requests, sometimes they will say, okay, I'm done now. I don't need the care plan. But there is, like you say, there's a ton of work and a ton of value that we can still show the client that we are delivering to them in the background. So yeah, to answer your question, how do you do that? One of the ways that we do that is, again, a small piece of automation is weekly reports. So we'll send out reports based on the plugins we've updated. If we've updated themes or the WordPress core. We'll also show kind of security scans, and we use systems that automate those reports each week. But yeah, if you're running, maybe you're a plugin developer and you've got hundreds of clients who have installed your plugin, can you maybe put extra information or resources or sections within that plugin or the settings of the plugin to show the client the value? So you really kind of would have to think outside the box there in terms of how much more can I do to show the client that they need this service or product. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. How can you show the client that you're delivering value, especially when your product, like care plans, a lot of that work happens in the background. So yeah, kind of switch to a more proactive way of working now, I would say.
Absolutely. I love all of that. Yeah, I remember, quick anecdote, when I was freelancing myself, having that happen where a client kind of cancels because she was like, oh, I can do all this myself. It's fine. And that's when I started like really getting heavy into like reporting and actually like proving on a regular basis that I was doing what I had to do. And like that never happened again after that. So I can say that it works.
Yeah. Get those clients, that say that they don't need in quotations, the care plan. And we do question that. We say, okay, I just want to make sure before you cancel, are you comfortable managing all of this yourself? Because when we remove our, your support network here, we recommend that somebody takes over, whether that's somebody else that's professional, or maybe you can do this yourself. And sometimes we will lose clients, and you're going to expect a certain amount of churn for that reason. But I will say those clients do tend to come back. Maybe they've broken something on the website, or they've figured out that there's a lot more work involved than they initially thought. And so I can then take that feedback and have a look at, okay, how can we provide that value that client didn't see? Where's that gap? So yeah, I totally agree with you. Whether you're, a freelance consultant, or a bigger agency, all of these problems are completely there on different levels.
Yeah, and I'll definitely say, like, wording is really important, I feel like, because I think there's a fine line between telling someone, like, well, here are all the things we're doing to make your website great, and saying, like, well, if you don't keep your website updated, it will crash. Which it's very possible that something bad might happen to your website if you're not keeping it updated, but it's also not fair to just say, like, well, you're kind of signing your website's death sentence if you're not, using service and things like that. So I'll say, keeping an eye on the wording and how you say things, to not make it sound threatening. Because I've heard horror stories of that, where people are paying for a way overpriced service because somebody told them, like, your site something bad will happen to it if you don't pay me thousands of dollars for maintenance and whatever.
Yeah, that's a super good point. Yeah, it's all about education really, and value, rather than scare tactics. It's just the reality of WordPress. Even when we are managing websites and things, there's no guarantees in the world of the internet, and so some things are, they can go wrong. So it's just about educating clients in terms of, if you don't keep your plugins updated, your website will then be vulnerable and potentially be hacked. We just want to make sure that if a client does leave us, that they're confident knowing what they're leaving, and that there's hopefully somebody's going to be taking over that job. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so let's go on to the next question. How can an agency or consultant begin tracking churn, and what systems do you recommend for that? So tracking, I guess, the percentages of how many people you're losing at a particular time.
Yeah. Again, different scales to this depending on the amount of clients you're managing, I guess, and the amount of resources you have on your team to track this sort of stuff. When you're first starting out, literally just spreadsheets will do the job for you. I still use my fair share of spreadsheets right now.
I've seen your spreadsheets, by the way, they're beautiful.
Yeah, I've gone from somebody who hated spreadsheets to somebody who's now like, okay, I can use a spreadsheet. This is fine.
Your Google Sheets are pretty beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, spreadsheets, honestly, from like the ground up, and then you can move into more automation. So as long as you're tracking clients out and clients in, the kind of time period that you work with is really up to you. This kind of does vary month to month to begin with. So the acquired clients during a month compared to churned clients, just log those in your spreadsheet. You can then divide them and get your churn rate. But what I would say is, especially when you are starting, or you have a lower volume of clients right now, I would say the churn percentage isn't as important as just literally tracking client per client that leaves you. So it's really important just to kind of understand why these people are leaving in the early stages, because you can then take that feedback, and then that will kind of form your basis and your kind of strategy in client success. If you're just kind of tracking people who are just leaving and churning and churning and churning, you have no data. You just have this data that says, oh, we have this percentage of churn. You really don't know why that is the case, and so you can't use that. It's not useful data. So yeah, I would say track per client. And again, back to something as simple as an exit survey. Maybe reach out, ask the client why they left you. It can be really simple to begin with, and just kind of go from there, and that will form a kind of basis and foundation for your strategy going forwards.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, so question number 3. I want to get to a 0% churn rate. Is that unrealistic? And if so, why? So 0% over, I would guess, say for a month, I want to have absolutely 0. Is that unrealistic, or is that something that's doable?
I love this question for a few reasons, because I think when people start to look at churn, it is the dream to have that 0% churn rate, and people are like, yeah, I don't want anyone to leave my service. I want to hold on to these reoccurring subscription clients. Yeah, that would be amazing. I would say it's a nice goal to to have, but it's not realistic in my opinion. And I would also recommend not aiming for a 0% churn rate. The reasons being is because if you don't have any churn, well, okay, it would be great if you didn't have any churn, but you will have. And so when you do, it's more important to look at why, why these clients leaving, and that will kind of show you where the gaps are in your business. So that might be, a certain percentage of these people are leaving for failed payments, and we're not following up, or we're not catching them. They might be leaving because of budget or business and financial reasons. And so, yeah, it's unrealistic to look for a 0% churn rate, and it's not useful. It's not useful to have that sort of mindset. It's not a kind of forward-thinking mindset. It's not reality. You're going to have some level of churn. So by kind of aiming for a 0% churn rate, you're kind of avoiding the issues and the holes and the gaps in your business, perhaps. So you want to analyze this and kind of figure out what's going wrong.
Awesome. Thank you. It's a great answer. I think it's very human to be like, okay, we're going to always shoot for 0 and understand that we probably won't reach it, but that's what we're shooting for all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, somebody is in our comment section. Sorry, this is freezing. Diego is visiting us. One of our WordPress engineers, Diego, says hello. Hi, Diego. So I'll see if he has a question for you. And yeah, and then we're down to our final question. This might be a fairly quick AMA today, but I think lots of really useful information here. So the fourth question is, what are your top tips for areas to focus on when considering lowering your churn rate?
Yeah, I would say pretty much just to summarize a few of the bits that we've already gone over. So failed payments is a big one. A big percentage of your clients would be leaving for failed payments if you don't have systems to catch them. Show the value to your clients. So just make sure that your clients know why you're there, why they're paying you, whether that is through weekly reports, or it's something that pops up in the WordPress dashboard because you're a plugin developer, or if you build websites, or just make sure that you're showing people the value. Another area I would say is to review your pricing. Review your pricing. I mean, it might not be that you have to lower your, I wouldn't ever say lower your pricing, but it might be that you need to actually increase your pricing. And that kind of sounds odd, but you will have to not be afraid to kind of experiment with your pricing level with your service. If you're seeing a really high level of churn, once you've analyzed that churn, if you're seeing that people are leaving because of financial reasons, or they're leaving because they don't have the budget, but their expectations are maybe high, maybe you're working with a client base that doesn't fit and align with your business. And so then you need to look at pricing and have a bit of a review. Maybe you need to increase the pricing, or maybe you need to just add another tier to your service. But yeah, pricing is always definitely going to be something that you shouldn't be afraid to experiment with, but always make sure that you don't do that very often, and find your sweet spot as soon as possible, so that you're not having clients, wanting discounts all the time, or you're not kind of lowering your prices and raising your service level because that's not scalable. So yeah, definitely that's another area to take a look at as well. I would say just start there as the foundation, but there's definitely more you could do. and more to have a look at.
Awesome. Perfect. Are there any good like books or podcasts or other resources that you really like that help you kind of learn and grow in the role that you have now that maybe we can recommend to people?
Yes, for sure. So I've been watching a bunch of webinars recently as well. Churn Zero, they have some great webinars at the moment, especially for people in leadership roles, but really it's great for anybody in client success. So Churn Zero, check them out. They also have a great system. Who else? A company called Client Success, literally Client Success, all one word. I think it's .com. They have a load of loads of resources there. So that's webinars and blog posts. And also, I want to recommend a Slack group, which is support driven. If you Google support driven, they're great. So this will actually just connect you with client success people, customer success people all around the world. We created a mastermind of three of us from like, I think they were both based in the US and I was in Europe. So our time zones were a little bit, overlappy. But yeah, I actually met two great people there in client success. And we just kind of met and spoke about our challenges, and they were in different industries, not even in WordPress. So it was great to see that like we're all working through the same challenges, even outside of the WordPress space. And I recommend anybody do that really. But yeah, those resources are really great. Support driven Slack group. There's tons of contacts in there.
Awesome. That is all super useful. And I'll go ahead and grab everything that you just said, and I'll put links down in the description for people watching later on so that they can go directly to those resources. So yeah, that looks like all the questions that we have for today. This was a like rapid fire, super quick one, but a lot of really helpful information. Dean, thank you so much for sharing part of your afternoon or your evening with me, technically. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you or follow you or read things that you wrote or anything like that?
So social media on everything is at Burton Dean. I just kept it simple. At Burton Dean on Twitter. I also have a website, dean-burton.com, where I kind of write my experiences and life lessons in customer success, and also a few other sort of places where I've spoken. They're on that website as well. So drop by and have a look. There's a bit of information there. And of course at WP Buffs, Dean at WPBuffs.com.
Awesome. Very cool. Alrighty, that's it for this week. We will see you all again next week. Make sure you go to wpbuffs.com/WP-AMA-series and sign up there to get early access to the next speaker. And the form to submit your questions. You'll get that early as well. If you want to find out more about us, we also keep it simple. WP Buffs on pretty much everything.